fight short, man.
You said what?
Gotta keep the fight short, man.
What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna have him play the song to the fight. And as soon as the song's over, we're done.
That wood lock on the side.
Bro, I was pissed this morning. I left my wood lock away on the car. I got in and she was frozen. I'm like, no. I put it in my pocket. I wrapped it up in like a scarf. Had it on the floor next to the foot heater. Like, come on.
I tried using that stuff on my shoulder around my wife. She can't stand the smell of that stuff.
I can say the same thing. I'm like, fall away from me. I can't take it serious, man, with the fucking accent. She cursed and shit. I just laugh. Like, that could be the most serious situation. She's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I was like, say that again, please.
No, I feel like I'm the only one. You make your significant other mad so you can see certain characteristics pop out. You find it entertaining.
Lois, the opposite, man. She loves the woodlock. She hates cologne.
Really?
Yeah.
Corona?
Yeah, it's cologne.
Oh, that shit Corona.
She hates that, man. But she loves the woodlock. Alright, number 18, Tao Te Ching. The great Tao fades away. There is benevolence and justice. Intelligence comes forth. There is great deception. The six relations are not harmonious. There is filial piety and kind affection. The country is in confused chaos. There are loyal ministers. The Tao always exists, so how can it fade away? This chapter isn't talking about the ever-present Tao of the universe, but the concept of it in our thoughts. When that concept fades away, we can no longer be congruent with the Tao in a natural way. We need concepts such as benevolence, compassion, justice, and righteousness to guide our actions and behavior. The six family relationships are parent, child, oldest sibling, youngest sibling, husband, and wife. When these six are in state of harmony, the family enjoys a strong bond that requires no effort to maintain. When they degenerate into a state of disharmony, we must work on filial piety, obedience, and affection to keep the family together. When a country descends into chaos and anarchy, it becomes crucial to make the distinction between ministers who are loyal and those who are not. In general, the further we stray from the harmony of the Tao, the more necessary it becomes to make distinctions. Good and bad end up so polarized that we tend to forget they emerged from the same Tao. Think about what happens when hatred takes over your thoughts. Your antagonism against your enemy is so intense that it is impossible to see any common ground between the two of you. This harsh sense of separation is a sign that you have become too removed from the positive and uplifting Tao. If it is possible for you to draw closer to the Tao, the hatred will begin to lose its grip. You gradually gain an ability to see things from the other person's perspective. Even if you cannot agree with that perspective, at least you begin to see the cause of the conflict. This is the beginning of understanding. Reflection.
To me, at least how I'm hearing that this particular chapter, it's getting me to think about like politicians, like how they work. And I know how people feel about politicians, but it's like finding common ground. Like, all right, you have people so opposed to one another, or they're so passionate about their ideals that they refuse to, you know, understand one another. But when you finally like, all right, well, we don't have to agree on everything, but we can at least respect one another or respect each other's opinions. And for somebody who like understands that, it's like, well, it's easier to move through life with that understanding rather than just like, well, if I don't like you, you know, I can't shake hands with you, I can't do this, I can't do that. It kind of cripples you in a way, but if you understand one another, you can just move on and even one day be on that person's side, or even they can be on your side.
Number 19. And sagesy, abandon knowledge, the people benefit it 100 times. And benevolence, abandon righteousness, the people return to piety and charity. And cunning, discard profit, bandits and thieves no longer exist. These three things are superficial and insufficient. Thus, this teaching has its place. Show plainness, hold simplicity. Reduce selfishness, decrease desires. The character Ju translated as end means to discontinue. The concept is clear. We should put a stop to the obsession with book knowledge and focus on the wisdom of living outside of books. It is the ancient Chinese way of telling a bookworm to get a life. Some people have such a powerful desire for ever more knowledge that they fail to hear this message. They interpret end to mean extreme or ultimate. They change the first line to say that if one could gain the ultimate knowledge so that there is nothing more to learn, then people would benefit 100-fold. In this fashion, they have taken a warning against the blind pursuit of knowledge and transformed it into a rallying cry to acquire even more. The fact that this distortion can happen at all is the very reason Lao Tzu warns against it. As we cultivate the Tao, let us keep Lao Tzu's admonition in mind. Knowledge isn't a bad thing per se, but book smarts can never replace street smarts, and school learning can never be compared to life learning. We need both. This is one of the most difficult chapters to understand because we have a strong tendency to worship knowledge. We have all been conditioned to believe that knowledge is power, so how can having more be a bad thing? Lao Tzu is unique among all the ancient philosophers in constantly highlighting the pitfalls of knowledge. In several chapters, including this one, he points to the link between intelligence and arrogance. He also points to the ease with which we can use knowledge in a shrewd way to twist the truth. In fact, this very chapter provides an excellent example. Reflection. To me, it gets me to think about like people training in martial arts. I got this belt, I got that belt. I've been training for this long. There's so many streets. It doesn't say that I don't train shit. It just comes in and whoops everybody's ass.
I'll try to whoop it. I've been doing it since today.
So that movie, like Bruce Lee going into that Japanese martial arts school, everybody there got black belts, just starts whooping everybody up. There's no belt, no shirt. Just I want to destroy all y'all. I'll practice no art. And then but you know, even so, you know, with combat sport like boxers and cage fighters, they might think they're all dope because they fight in the ring and all that shit. But then you got the people in the streets that use guns and just jack them off and just kill them, you know. Like keeping the street and the perspective in your training, not to get too arrogant just because you've been training for a long time or you got whatever belt or rank, but just remain humble, knowing that the real stuff comes down to just, it's not even about that, you know. You know, you can't just place yourself above other people. Even if you got a gun, I mean, you saw those videos. People are armed and they start running towards the attack. It don't make sense. I mean, just because you got a gun don't mean that you're like immune to bullets and shit. You know what I'm saying? It just means that you're like, you have a better chance because you're armed. But don't take that for granted. You know, you can still get shot just as easily as everybody else. Man, police officers get killed all the time. They got guns and bulletproof vests and backup and everything. So no matter if you got rank, no matter if you've been training for many years, no matter if you got a gun, you still gotta see the truth, see the reality, and don't get too arrogant, you know. I think that's one of the best teachings in the Tao, is it teaches you not to value knowledge too much. And especially we live in a world where everybody has internet, everybody's got access to Google. Everybody thinks they're like Albert Einstein now or something like that because everybody's got access to all this knowledge. But now it boils down to street knowledge. Like, okay, you might have access to Google, but it doesn't mean that you've experienced anything in life. You know, so the Tao's talking about more life experiences. It's more about wisdom rather than knowledge, which is more about experience. So not just about reading books all the time, but actually living life and then learning through your experiences. That's what the Tao pretty much promotes.
Yeah, I learned similar teaching. I think I was in India, but it's really the same premise. They talk about the three wisdoms. One being, or knowledge, one being like book knowledge, or wisdom, or internet, you know, basically you're reading what other people have researched. Then there's wisdom of someone imparting their experience, sharing their experience with you. And then the most powerful experience being in wisdom is being your own experience in life. And what you know to be true because you experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with reading or being learning from a teacher, but my takeaway was the real wisdom comes from your life experience.
And martial arts and just arts in general, you can see the main differences. So, like, there's a difference between someone who's actually training in martial arts and he spars and he learns what to do, what not to do, opposed to just people that just watch a bunch of boxing matches and that's just all they do is just watch videos. Like, they're disconnected. They don't have that experience of actively getting involved themselves. It's totally different. And then same thing with music. There's people that actually make music, create music, play music that they've created. And then there's just people that just listen to music that other people create. I mean, everybody listens to music, but not everybody actually creates music. So art is like teaching you to get involved into connecting with your own inner spirit and expressing that. That helps you gain more wisdom because you're actually engaged opposed to just being somebody who's just watching, you know. So the Tao just keeps reminding you to get engaged, to create, head towards wisdom. Number 20. Cease learning, no more worries. Respectful response and scornful response. How much is the difference? Goodness and evil, how much do they differ? What the people fear, I cannot be unafraid. So desolate, how limitless it is. The people are excited, as if enjoying a great feast, as if climbing up to the terrace in spring. I alone am quiet and uninvolved, like an infant not yet smiling, so weary like having no place to return. The people all have surplus, while I alone seem lacking. I have the heart of a fool indeed, so ignorant. Ordinary people are bright, I alone am muddled. Ordinary people are scrutinizing, I alone am obtuse. Such tranquility like the ocean, such high wind as if without limits. The people all have goals, and I alone am stubborn and lowly. I alone am different from them. I and value the nourishing mother. The blind pursuit of learning leads to excessive desires. The more you see, the more you want. Excessive desires, in turn, lead to anxiety and misery. We tend to place too much importance on value judgments like good and evil. In reality, they are relative variables that change according to perspective. Lao Tzu went about life with a healthy dose of caution. If people considered something to be bad, there was probably a reason for it, so he would proceed with care, even though he understood the relative nature of value judgments. This is a reference to the vast gap between Tao cultivators and ordinary people. Lao Tzu uses it to describe himself as being far apart from others in many ways. The infant represents the pureness of our original nature. In that state of grace, we see life as a marvel and look upon everything with a sense of wonder. When Lao Tzu talks about not being overly calculating, he is specifically referring to our conduct in interpersonal relationships. Many people keep track of scores, slights, cold shoulders, backstabs, so when the time is right, they can even the score. You have no need to do that. We take actions to protect ourselves from malicious people, but we otherwise let go of personal affronts without needing to retaliate in kind. Many may think this is a severe disadvantage, but Tao cultivators see it very differently. The first character in this line, Liao, is translated as high wind. It is a depiction of dynamic movement to contrast with the tranquility of the calm seas. The nursing mother is a reference to the Tao because the Tao is the source of life and provides for all living things. Reflection.
One piece really stuck out to me about this kind of thing that people do to get revenge, or like even the score. I even had an experience. So my girl's car was on the fritz. She had put it in the shop, and I let her use my Durango to get to work. So she had it for a couple of days and whatnot, way on the south side. So I'm like, I guess what I would have done, it's just me, if I borrowed somebody's car and I give it back to them, they got a full tank of gas coming, or at least some gas. I ain't getting no gas. And I didn't say anything. I was just like kind of checking my own reaction. Like I said, okay, next time something, I'm gonna do something. Like that was my initial reaction. And I had to like catch myself. I mean, I did catch myself, but it just happened so quick. This whole idea of evening the score, it's kind of messed up.
What I take from it, ultimately, is just treat people how you would want to be treated. And it's really difficult when you're treated badly, but as long as you keep that in mind, like karma, what goes around comes around, and it's not really up to us to seek revenge, but the universe tends to, you reap what you sow. That's what I get from it.
Page 21. The appearance of great virtue follows only the Tao. The Tao as a thing seems indistinct, seems unclear. So unclear, so indistinct. Within there is image, so indistant, so unclear. Within there is substance, so deep, so profound. Within there is essence. Its essence is supremely real. Within it there is faith, from ancient times to the present. Its name never departs. To observe the source of all things, how do I know the nature of the source? With this. Indistinct and unclear are used several times in this chapter. They refer to the mysteries of the Tao. We find the great unknown at the heart of existence. No matter how we probe it, total understanding eludes us. Every time we solve one puzzle, another presents itself. One of the mysteries of the Tao is the essence of life. How exactly does life arise from the inorganic, lifeless material? This is something we still do not understand. How exactly do we, life forms not so different from others on this planet, become self-aware? This is another mystery that seems forever to remain just one step beyond comprehension. The concept of Tao originated well before the beginning of recorded history. It is far more ancient than most people realize. What it is about the Tao that gives it such lasting power? The only thing we can be sure of is that it is not a passing fad or a temporary fixation. It is the enduring and eternal truth. Perhaps the answer to one of the mysteries above is that we are not life forms that have become self-aware. Perhaps it is the other way around. We are entities of pure consciousness that have learned how to manifest in the physical universe through the workings of life. If this is true of us, then it is also true of the people around us. Let us put this idea to the test. When you interact with others, see them not as physical bodies, but as spiritual energy. How does this change the way you feel about them? Reflection.
I think it changes it tremendously. We look at each other as spiritual beings versus physical beings. I mean, that changes everything. The whole way we see the world. I mean, that's what I would imagine. Because the spirit is, it's endless, it's limitless, it's infinite. Physical is finite. And
what I get from it is, by looking at other individuals as spiritual entities as opposed to physical, it coincides with the idea that everything is one. And despite differences in the world or in the universe, everything ultimately is one energy and a part of one ultimate motion. It really breeds humility and respect.
Yield and remain whole. Bend and remain straight. Be low and become filled. Be worn out and become renewed. Have little and receive. Have much and be confused. Therefore the sages hold to the one as an example for the world, without flaunting themselves, and so are seen clearly, without presuming themselves, and so are distinguished, without praising themselves, and so have merit, without boasting about themselves, and so are lasting. Because they do not contend, the world cannot contend with them. What the ancients called the one who yields and remains whole. Were they speaking empty words, sincerely becoming whole, and returning to oneself? The Chinese have a saying, take one step back, the ocean is wide, the sky is empty. What it teaches us is that when we yield in a potentially tense situation, we will suddenly feel a sense of the wide open space and the wide open heart. Some may see yielding as a sign of weakness. Tao cultivators see it as a manifestation of courage and character, amply rewarded by wide open vistas. Being low means being humble. To be filled is to receive abundantly. Just as lowly places tend to be filled with water, so too does a humble person receive an abundance of respect and goodwill. This line highlights an interesting paradox. Sages have no wish to show off or be highly visible in any way. This makes them unique in a world where most people love to draw attention to themselves. Ironically, their uniqueness makes them conspicuous. Like plants, sages bend when the strong winds of contention blow, because they do not get contentious or defensive. Others cannot contend against them. There is literally nothing to attack. Yielding in the Taoist sense does not mean suppressing the desire to fight. Instead, it means we relinquish the need to be defensive. Our views do not gain validity when we defend them, nor do they lose validity when we choose not to defend them. Therefore, being defensive amounts to nothing more than a tremendous waste of energy. Yielding lets us save this energy to be directed to something more constructive. Reflection.
It's almost, what I get from it is just knowing your truth and letting it live through you and through your actions, as opposed to trying to convince or trying to prove.
disobedience, like not in a bad manner, but more of like, okay, well, the laws are unjust, so you know, if they're unjust, then I won't follow them. Which, in a way, you're breaking the law. But it's like, all right, we're gonna throw you in jail. Like, okay, so be it. You're yielding. Like, I'm yielding to the law because I broke the law, but you know, you can't fight with somebody who accepts it. Kind of reminds me like Gandhi going on a hunger strike. Like, you know what? I'm just not gonna eat. It's like, what the government gonna do about it?
Yeah, that one really resonates with me. Very validating, just the whole idea of humility and the power of that. I struggled for probably the first half of my life or more with the idea that that was somehow some form of weakness. Being humble, yielding, you know, giving up the relinquishing, I think he said, the desire to be defensive, and just how much energy that wastes, where that energy could be used in a more positive way. So it's very validating for lifestyle I try to live and lead with humility and respect of others. It's hard though, because you get triggered, you get on edge, and the world is throwing shit at you left and right. No, this motherfucker didn't do this shit. You know, you want to attack. Sometimes you need to, but a lot of times you just get pulled into some shit that's a waste of your time.
What I really like about the Tao is it just basically teaches me to just be myself and appreciate how you are. Don't change yourself, because there's a lot of things that the Tao teaches of where I just feel natural in, and the whole culture is pretty much designed to change you from, or change me from who I am. But the Tao is like, you know, actually, you know, supporting, you know, the qualities of myself that are just natural to me, but then the culture just kind of frowns upon. I think a lot of the teachings of the Tao are just kind of highlighting the beauties of like the yin energy of introversion, of just being softer, yielding, not so aggressive and violent and competitive and ego. Like, it's just highlighting the importance of the yin energy, and it comes more natural to me. So like, even I was playing this card game with my kids last night. it's called lunch money. It's like having like a street fight with the cards. So like, I just kept whooping on them, kept beating them, and then they teamed up against me to try to beat me, and then I still was winning, but then they beat me like maybe once, and then Angelina wanted to just play me straight up, like just me and her, and then like it goes by points, so you start off with 15 points, and I'm like, all right, do you want me to start off with 10 to give you an advantage? And then she beat me, but then she's like, no, I want you to have 15 points. I want to beat you when you got 15. I'm like, all right. So we played. I'm not trying to lose. Like, I'm trying to win, you know. And she ended up beating me, you know. And I'm like, inside, I'm like, man, like, it feels good. Like, I don't like to just win all the time. Like, it feels good to see somebody happy, you know. Like, that's how I've always been. Like, play a video game when I was younger, and when I see my friends get so angry when they lose, sometimes I just feel like just letting them win, because I don't like people getting angry, you know. Like, I've always been like that. Like, I don't like to see people get upset, you know. And I think through time I've learned to just let it go, like not make such a big deal about a game. And like, that's to me, that's how like the Tao is. It's like, you know, if it makes you so happy to win, then just win, you know. It's like it's not that big of a deal, you know. Like, that's how it's always been. To me, it's like more compassion. You see somebody who's in pain, and then you just want to make them feel better. But for me, when I do it, it's like, I don't want to let them win. I want to actually try, so then they earn the win, because then it's more genuine, you know, opposed to just like pretending, like hustling somebody in pool or something like that. But, you know, I've always been very different than what the culture wants me to be. And the Tao is the only thing that I've come upon that got me to embrace that part of myself. And it's like, you don't have to change, just be who you are. That's beautiful the way it is. And then the Tao just pretty much reinforced me to pretty much give up competition completely and just head towards art. Because art is not competitive to me. Art is just expressing yourself from your heart. Competition is completely like the opposite. You know, it's like you're not expressing yourself from the heart. You're just doing whatever you need to do to win, and at all costs. And that's completely the opposite of what the Tao is teaching. So Tao is more like, it's just more about being yourself, being naturally humble, like being, you know, more balanced, more yin, more soft. So, you know, it's a deep life teaching to me. The whole Tao is actually. And a lot of the Chinese martial arts is based off the Tao. Like Bruce Lee named his art the Tao Te Ching. And then Bruce Lee uses the yin-yang sign as his symbol. And then Tai Chi uses the yin-yang sign. And the yin-yang is like the representation of the Tao. Like a lot of the Chinese martial arts is based off the Tao. So it's going to be very different than if you go to like the Japanese systems or Thailand or whatever other country. They're going to have their own philosophy, their own expression of the martial arts, and it's not all the same. They're very different. So specifically, when Bruce Lee says Tao Te Ching, and I say like Tao, FREDDIE'S Kung Fu, it's like it's not even about the system, it's about the Tao. So if you study the Tao and you understand it and you live it, then you'll understand the martial arts, at least according to the Chinese way of like of their way of living. You know, like I think Japan has been very westernized, and I think China's becoming more westernized too. So globally, everything's heading away from the Tao, not just America, but Japan and you know, China. Just the whole world is heading towards the opposite of Tao. But the real martial arts, it's not even the Chinese martial arts, but just the real martial arts in general, it's headed towards the Tao. So even Aikido comes from Japan, but Do means Tao, and the Aikido way is supposed to follow the Tao as well. So even the Taekwondo with the Do at the end is supposed to follow the Tao. So that's like, in my eyes, that's the real martial arts. What follows the Tao is the real martial arts. So if you want to understand real martial arts, then you gotta understand the Tao, and you gotta live it. You know. But it's just, I think, as the world, as the years go by, there'll be less and less people that are representing the Tao, and it'll be harder and harder to find, because the world is just getting so aggressive and competitive that it just pushes everything out. All the Tao just gets pushed out. Similar to maybe the presidency, you know, maybe every single president has been a male. There's still not one female. So it's just over, just yang like crazy, just overly yang. And that's what America promotes, and then pretty much the world just kind of follows along suit with what America wants. So if America's all about yang, then the whole world's kind of heading in that direction as well.
Because of consumerism and desires, man. People just want. And mass consumption is out of control, and they promote it to be economical in America's, or in the Western sense, is to be more, to consume more, or to more economical means more consumption.
To me, the Tao represents nature, so it's like if you go to certain parts of Africa or whatever, that they have still lions and wildlife that's becoming more and more rare. To me, that's the Tao. It's that's how hard it is to find it. You know? Yeah, it's getting extinct.
Giraffes are nearly extinct. Bees are nearly extinct, bro. Bees. People are gonna die if bees die.
Even medicine, the Western medicine versus Eastern medicine. Western medicine is violent. It's violent and aggressive. They're either doing surgery or they're giving you pills. It's the essence of Western medicine. Where is it so much?
Cut you open, dope you up.
Yeah, pretty much. Or both.
All you up and dope you up.
Radiation, all that shit. I mean, it's aggressive.
And the economy isn't measured by quality of life. So they say America's economy is improving because GDP is up in the medical field. So they think that's a good thing. But the reality of that means more people are sick and dying.
Yeah, so I think the important thing is to kind of understand the Tao, live the Tao within you. The culture will never be according to the way the Tao is always going to be hidden no matter what. And it's just got to be represented by the individual. But it's just something that you just have to understand and see for yourself. It's not one of the nice things about the Tao is it's not really so much exploited and commercialized and it hasn't been turned into a religion really. You don't really see anybody claiming, oh, I'm a Taoist, you know, but you got a bunch of people that says, oh, I'm Christian, Catholic, Muslim, whatever, but you don't see people saying I'm a Taoist. You see people saying, oh, I'm Buddhist and stuff like that, but you don't really see people saying I'm a Taoist. So the teachings are more pure because it just goes back to the source of the Tao Te Ching, and you just read it for yourself and just, what do you think about it, you know? You interpret it for yourself to see what truth that you see from it. And then it changes you, because when you see something and you truly see it, you can't really be the same ever again because you've seen the truth. And that's kind of what the Tao does to you. It's like, it gets you to see something from a different perspective. You're like, wow, you know, I've never seen it like that before. Just like it's talking about the value of emptiness. Like everybody's looking, oh, it's like 3/4 full, but then the Tao's like, no, this is actually 1/3 empty. The value is like, the Tao shows the value of empty space. But everybody's so focused on the content, the Tao's talking about the space. That's important. And just to realize that is a huge thing. You're like, wow, you know, like it's not just all about this, but it's also about that. Just like yesterday, I sold my treadmill. I got so happy. Like, yeah, it's gone. It's like everybody gets happy from buying stuff, but realize the importance of getting rid of stuff too. You know, there's a lot of value in getting rid of stuff. You know, like look at like people getting overweight. You know, they get so happy when they lose weight. I mean, that's one example of losing to be beneficial. You know, it's not always about gaining. So the Tao is just, the Tao is necessary because it teaches you to appreciate that balance. Like right now we're stretching. We just did a bunch of fitness training, but this stretching is our way to kind of rejuvenate and appreciate that yin part of the training and not to forget about it. You know. So, go ahead.
Still learning. At least I remember you told me, like, culturally, like, the East appreciates even like death. When you hear in the Western world, it's like, man, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like, oh man, I'm trying to die today, but it's like, no, it's like, you know, they acknowledge it. You know, it's a part of life. I mean, every culture acknowledges death, but it's different. Like, you know, it's like, well, they see the beauty in it as well. And like you said, there's a balance. It's not just like all one way. Like, we just praise one end of the spectrum and not the other.
Yeah.
I was reading something yesterday, and you kind of touched on what Shin just said. Like, in the West, people like, it's such a negative connotation towards growing old.
Right.
Whereas they say 50 years old is like your second birth. Because once you hit 50 years old, it's like the average person lives between 85 and 95. 100 isn't too far off. So it's like at 50 years old, it's technically like you're a new baby because you've lived half of your life. So you have another 50 years to either flourish and, you know, accomplish your goals and shit that you haven't done yet, or you just kind of feel like you're towards the end of the road and you know, life's over, you're getting old. And it's like those two separate mindsets, you know, determine a lot about how a person's life is going to evolve towards death.
I'm getting on the flourish bus.
So that means I have to have 2 deaths. If I don't have 1 death in this life, it's going to be a glorious death.
I mean, ultimately, death is glorious, man. I mean, especially to die old, like growing old is a beautiful thing because it's wisdom and it's experience all bundled up into a lifespan that not many people get to see, you know? So instead of, you know, when people get old, like my dad, he wants to come to Kung Fu so much, but then he's like, nah, he's only like 47, but he's like, nah. It's like, dude, you're like, he wanted to fight me and everything on Kung Fu, let's spar. You hit me for real, I'm gonna kick your ass. Just so you do.
Let's why don't you guys do the title form one time?